So, gosh, so church is going pretty well so far. It's good for me. How is it for you? Just checking in. All right, good. So I have an invitation to start off with this morning, and it's simply and profoundly this. I invite you to participate in this talk and the service today like today's a turning point in your life. You got up and came here anyway, right? We're going to be here for the next 25, 30 minutes, the next half hour, whatever. We're going to be here, so you can relate to it like, yeah, okay, another day at Unity on the River, right? Or you can relate to it like, yeah, I'm all in. This is a turning point in my life. Neil Donald Walsh says that your life proceeds from your intention for it. We believe that, right? Your life proceeds from your intention for it. And the only challenge is that too often we're just not intentional enough about how we're living our lives. We just kind of go about it from one thing to the other, and we come to church, and whatever, church happens, and then we go do the next thing, and that happens, right? So my invitation today is that you actually dig in and say, today's a turning point in my life, in whatever way you need it to be. Some problem you've been grappling with, an emotional state that you've been having, relationship that you're not quite sure about. Like, I don't know what it is, you know. But that today is a new day. You know, it happened for me. I've been a congregant and a member here for many, many years. Too many. I can't believe it's been that long. Anyway, sorry, I digress. No filter sometimes. Hi, Balin. Just look at her back there. Yeah, I've been here since Balin and my son Nathan were like this big, and now she's like back there bigger than me. Anyway, sorry, I digress. What was I saying? What was I saying? Gosh, wait. Oh, it happened to me. Right. Thank you, Barry. It happened to me right here in this church. About 15 years ago, Shipley, the founding minister of this church, Shipley Allenson, was giving a talk, and in it she used a quote from the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas that says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you." I was like, wow. It was one of those times in my life, like maybe you're experiencing right now, where I felt a certain dis-ease and discomfort of how my life was going and where I wanted it to be, but didn't have the courage to take that step, to say yes to that thing that wanted to come through me. And I was experiencing that ennui, that discomfort, in fact, maybe even that depression. And when I heard that, it was like, yeah, that's what's happening. I'm not letting it come through me. But then I say, look, well, what is that it that needs to come through me? And it's interesting, as I was working on this talk, I found from Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity movement, he wrote that let God within you express through you to the world without. I thought, oh, let God within you express through you to the world without. If you bring forth that which is within you, it will save you. So perhaps, maybe what there is for us to do is bring forth the God within us. It's what I call being your God self on earth. You're always being lived by something. The question is, what are you being lived by? I said, let's just be lived by our God self on earth. Such a blessed way to live. But then there's that question of like, well, how do I do that? What does it look like? How do I let God come through me? And I really believe that understand the essence or the nature of that question is the essence of life. How do I have God express through and as me more fully? And it's the question that I pose before you today. In fact, it's a question that I've devoted my life to answering. You gotta get up for something. So it's a question that I've devoted myself to answering. And the answer for me comes down to what I've titled today's talk, The Science of Spiritual Living. So you've all heard the quote, right? It's by Pierre Desjardins that says, "We are spiritual beings having a human experience." You've heard that before? We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, it's like, that's the problem. That's the problem. We are spiritual beings. It's this human experience part where it gets a little messy. Have you noticed that? I'm glad it's not just me. I mean, sure, there are like lovely things, right? Like the birth of a child, you know, playing with your grandchildren, falling in love. There are lovely, lovely things that happen in our lives. But you know that science says that we have, like the average person has about 12,000 thoughts a day, all the way up to like people who are highly creative and engaged in stimulating endeavors have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Kind of bugged me when I read that. I was like, well, where am I? I digress. So somewhere between 12,000 thoughts a day and 80,000 thoughts a day, depending on how your mind operates. But then I think if you're transcendent enough, you probably only have like 5 thoughts a day. This could really be a rabbit hole, couldn't it? All right, I'm going to stay to the script, I promise. Right? It could be a rabbit hole. But anyway, so and then the research goes on to say that the majority of those thoughts, 12,000 to 80,000 thoughts, the majority of them are kind of repetitive thoughts, and the majority of those are in the lower vibratory realm. Angst, worry, upset, stress, chaos, overwhelm, judgment, self-judgment, self-criticism. Therein lies our challenge. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And my charge for you today is that you leave here knowing that you are a spiritual being having a spiritual experience, living as your spiritual essence all the time, and understanding what that looks like and what that means. Neuroscientist Eben Alexander wrote a book recently called Living in a Mindful Universe. And in that book, he said that the whole purpose, the whole point of the universe is to experience and create this grand evolution of consciousness. And he wrote that, so did you follow that? The whole point of the cosmos, the whole point of the universe is to experience and create this grand evolution of consciousness. And he wrote that, that's actually his second book. His first book was called Proof of Heaven, that he wrote after a week-long near-death experience where he was in a very deep coma, and in fact, his entire brain was shut down. But he lived to tell about it. And during those 7 days that he was in a deep coma, he had an incredible journey to the other side. And when he came back into his body, has since committed himself to teaching these spiritual principles and the truth that we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. You know, I just find it so exciting to be living at a time that the scientific world, the science world, neuroscience, quantum physics, and the unity, new thought teachings are merging more and more and more close together. I used to have to teach this stuff back when I first started being a spiritual teacher, saying, well, it's just philosophy. It's, this is a philosophy that we have. And I'm like, screw that. It's not philosophy. It's science, man. Right? It's so great to have that behind it. But we really are living at a time where science and spirituality are merging more and more and more closely together. So what we know from science beyond a shadow of a doubt is that the quality of your life is the equivalent of the vibratory pattern of your consciousness. Take that in. The quality of your life is the equivalent or contingent on the vibratory pattern of your consciousness. So let's break that down a little bit. First of all, what you have to understand is that nobody talks like this. Right? Nobody talks like this. I promise you, if you go to like work tomorrow, or if a family member or something calls you and they're like lamenting about their woes and joes about the weekend, and this didn't go well and this didn't go well, and you say to them, well, you know what I learned over the weekend? Here's what it is. The vibratory, your consciousness and your quality of your life is equivalent to the vibratory pattern of your consciousness. I promise you, they are not going to want to talk to you, maybe for the rest of the year. Right? Which may very well solve some problems for you. Right? So nobody talks like, nobody thinks like this, and we're not living in a mass consciousness that's like all awakened and like, wow, the problem is just how I'm thinking. It's just my vibratory pattern of my consciousness. But I promise you, in 1519, before Magellan circumnavigated the globe in a seafaring vessel, nobody was talking about the fact that the earth was round either. This is how we evolve. So the fact that nobody is talking about your vibratory pattern today, I don't care. We're talking about it. And science is starting to. And the more that we bring that into our world, the people that want to rise, it will be drawn to you, and the people that say, that's woo-woo, hairy-fairy, muck-a-muck, will be repelled away from you. That's the order of the universe, the natural and progressive order of the universe. Nikola Tesla, I love his work. He was a Serbian-American electrical engineer. He said that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy and vibration. You know that quote? I've used it here before. If you were listening, you should remember it. All right. So Nikola Tesla's the vibratory, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of vibration, energy and vibration. That's really a lot of what we think about here, but I want us to get underneath and start really understanding what that means. So there are two different ways, well, many different ways to look at it, but I'm going to get into a couple today. One is through the energy of your mind. There's such good science about this now. So you know that as you think, your mind has electrical currents to it, and that can be tracked within EEG, electroencephalogram, so that when you are in a meditative state, your brain waves, kind of have this very loping, kind of slow. And then when you are stressed or trying to figure things out or kind of having your human experience, you have beta waves, which kind of look like this. That's what your life looks like most of the time. A little bit looks like this. That's the electromagnetic field that gets created out around you. So our charge is to understand that the more we're having those electrical experiences, that is the energy and vibration that Tesla was talking about. There's something important I want to say about that, and I'm going to go find out what it is. Oh, right. So back. So do you guys know that how we've believed our identity is, how we have believed that this is the way that I am, has been like, well, this happened, therefore I think this way, and basically there's nothing I can do about it, right? You've kind of heard that before, and you're like, no, I don't think that way at all. That's because you're a unity congregation. But, that is kind of how people think. Well, that's just the way I am. I can't help it. In the 1970s, something was discovered called neuroplasticity that taught us that the brain actually does rewire itself to make up for any injury or impairment. It was discovered by a doctor out of University of California in San Francisco, Dr. Michael Menich something. And it was a groundbreaking discovery that the brain actually changes, because before then, just like we thought the world was flat until Magellan did something about it, before then we really thought we have this organ that guides and directs our entire existence, and it doesn't change after late childhood. That's what we believed. And some of you still think that. It is not true. So we learned in the 70s, late 70s, that our brain actually changes. And what we've learned in just the last 10 or 15 years is that the brain doesn't just do its own thing. In fact, there's something now understood called self-directed neuroplasticity, which means you can use your mind to train your brain. Say, what? Your mind and your brain are not the same thing. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz is the scientist who came upon this, and what he found is that as you learn to use your brain, to talk back to your brain, to catch yourself in those lower vibratory patterns, you can actually change the structure of your brain. People who are long-term meditators actually have a thicker, more advanced neocortex, frontal lobe neocortex, which is the center of delayed gratification and executive functioning, decision-making, wisdom, insight, spiritual awakening. That whole long-term meditators have a thicker neocortex than those who do not meditate. A study out of Boston University and Harvard University showed that after just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation, those people involved in the study reported feeling calmer, more grounded, less stressed, but this is the part that's just mind-blowing. Their fear center of their brain, that's called what? You guys are so good. That's called the amygdala, was actually smaller after just 8 weeks of mindfulness training. These are mind-blowing discoveries. what we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you can rewire your brain to have the experience that you want any minute, every minute. And the more that you do that consciously, that is raising your vibratory pattern. There's a vibratory pattern to every thought. Lower thoughts have a lower vibratory pattern. Higher thoughts, loving thoughts, generous thoughts, have a higher vibratory pattern. Changing your vibratory pattern is what will change the quality of your life. But it's not just your thought world, is it? Those of you who were here for my talk in the spring know that I said that the magnetic energy of the heart center, the emotion center, is 5,000 times stronger than the area around your mind. So understanding the heart energy is also vitally important. We've got to develop mastery over both, don't we? So I want to just share an example with you about the mind energy and how our thinking, sometimes our thoughts think us, don't they? Have you noticed that? Like your thoughts are thinking you? So last week I was leading a leadership program, and I had taught this my consciousness model, and about vibratory pattern and consciousness, and how you think changes your experience. You can change your brain. I taught all this to my leadership group. And one of my students raised his hand. He's like, yeah, I love this. And I'm such a high vibe person. I just love, I'm passionate, and I love what I do. It's not me, it's the people around me. They just drag me down because they're so negative, and they just don't understand about this vibe stuff. And I'd be just fine if it weren't for them. To which I said, let's pay attention here. Anytime you're pointing the finger at something, anything, anyone else as being the cause of your vibratory pattern, you are in that low vibe pattern. And he's like, oh, yeah. And the whole room's like, yeah. This other gal raised her hand over here. She's like, yeah, I understand what he's saying because I come into work and I'm really passionate, but I can't trust anybody. And I really like it. I'm a high vibe person too. I really like that. But the fact that they all gossip about me and you can't trust anybody in my team, that's really the problem. I was like, wow. Okay, well, let's do this again. So and we had the whole thing. Okay, anytime you're pointing, she's like, oh, it's that ingrained in you. And I promise you, before the end of the day, you are going to say something similar. How do I know? Because 4 hours after that class that I taught, I went to a yoga class. And if you get to yoga early, sometimes the teacher will come up to you and say, do you have any health concerns, anything you want to work on? And so she comes up to me, she's like, hey, how you doing? Awesome, I'm here a little bit early. Those of you who are my students are like, of course she was there early. A little murmur in the room, of course she was there early. That's another talk for another day. So I get to yoga class early, and the teacher comes up, and she's like, hey, so how are you doing? Any concerns, any physical ailments? I was like, yeah, I am so stiff. I don't know what the deal is, but, I'm so stiff every morning when I get up, and my joints are achy. I don't know, maybe it's just the aging thing. To which she puts her hand in my face and does this. And then she gives me a little finger wag. And she says, no, you're not, it's not, I am so stiff. I'm working on greater flexibility. I'm working on nurturing my body as I move into other phases of life. Because what you say is creative, and you have to be mindful of what you think. I thought, oh my God, I hope she doesn't look me up on the internet. It's that ingrained in us. Just think for a minute. What did you say this morning that was reflective of what I just said? We do it all the time. It's instinctive. So the amount of work that it takes to be that mindful, that present, that creative with how you think, and now let's move to how you feel. So the vibratory pattern of your heart is a really important part of this. For some of us, as we age, we might have the emotional experience of fear. When you have that fear, it's going to give rise to thoughts, and then give rise to those thoughts, it comes out of your mouth, and you become creating your world. So with the vibratory pattern of the heart being 5,000 times stronger, you really have to develop this level of mastery over your emotions. So often people are like, well, I can't help it. It's just how I feel. You can help it, and we know that now. We know that as you start paying attention to the vibratory pattern of your heart chakra, you can elevate your thinking. So let me again, elevate your feeling, elevate your experience of things. I want to give you an example of that. So you guys know that I'm a coach and I teach a program called the Life Design Course. Several years ago, one of my students, I was doing life design with her one-on-one. She was from California, lovely, lovely gal. She was nearing retirement age, and one of the things she said she wanted to get out of life design was that she wanted to have a love relationship. She'd been single for, probably about 15, 20 years, and she was in early 60s, and she really wanted to bring love back in her life. So we did the whole life design process, and her core values were all about love, and her mission was all about love, and then we get into her vision, and there was nothing on there about finding a relationship. I was like, yo, hold up. So what's up here? She's like, I've been thinking about it, and I'm like 60-ish, and what the heck? It's probably too late. I was like, whoa, hold the bus. Stop. No. If you believe that, you're going to create that. She's like, yeah, I know. I know that's the case. I was like, no, you don't know. If you knew, you would never say that. If you knew how creative your emotional world is, that in your mental world is, you would not walk around saying, I can't. It's not possible. So I said, look, borrow my faith, because I know this is possible. So for the next week, between this call and next, all I want you to do is everywhere you go, I want you to just be like, is that him? Is that him? I want you to be like in the grocery store, like on the vegetable aisle, being like, is he there? Is he there? Where is he? Right? So she gets on the phone with me the following, and she's like, it's working. She's like, all of a sudden, I didn't see any attractive men for like the last 10 years of my life. And like this last week, they're everywhere. And you could feel, I could feel, she was in California, I was in Massachusetts, I could feel the energy through the phone. It was like amazing. She was like a different person. 3 weeks later, we get on the call. She's like, Jackie, you won't believe this really great guy. I was like, okay, here we go. So this gentleman who had been going to her church, she also went to a Unity church, had stopped going like a year before, and she didn't know, and she didn't really pay much attention to it because he was married. So all of a sudden, he shows up again. And he shows up, and after a week or so, they kind of hook up, and they start talking, and he had lost his wife. She had passed. And he took his time, and, and he says, but I'm really ready to be in love, to be with people again. And when I saw you across the room, there was something about you. Your energy was just magnetic. And I was just so drawn in by who you are. The magnetic energy of your heart is creative. 9 months later, they got married, and they are still together today. Isn't that crazy? What did she do? She shifted the vibratory pattern of her electromagnetic energy of her heart and mind. I said, here's what I want you to live inside of. And those of you who've read my Money Vibe book know that this is an important element of manifestation. I want you to live inside of the energy of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. Enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy, those are very high vibe emotions. But how often do we mostly, oh, I kind of want that. Oh, I hope it turns out. Oh, I hope this goes well. Screw that. Yeah. Stop that. It is not creative. That's what you'll create. You'll create the well, maybe. I don't want you to have a well, maybe life. I want you to have a hell yeah kind of life. I'm all in for this. But you don't get a hell yeah kind of life with a well, maybe energy. You'd be like, well, that's fine for you, Jackie. You're just one of those happy ones. No, I'm not. Follow me around, my poor spouse. I'm not. I'm a little morose, actually. All right, maybe that's too far, but you get my point. I've had to overcome lots of depression. I've had to overcome lots of character issues and addictive issues to get to this place. So the point is, it's not that you have these great emotions that you walk around life with. No, that client of mine was completely resigned. And in 1 week's time, she went from resigned to engaged. She generated the emotion. Brendan Bouchard says power plants don't have energy, they generate energy. You are a power plant. You can generate energy, and the more you generate the energy of the experience you want to have, the more your life will change. How does God express through and as you? By being masterful of what you think, generating the emotions that you want to experience, dropping your desire into the field of infinite potential through the use of your imagination. So how do we map these two on each other? Well, the whole thing about generating emotion is actually in science, they call that self-regulated positive emotion. What do we call it in Unity? Being grateful, maintaining a gratitude list, being of service, bringing your highest self forth in everything that you do. Self-directed neuroplasticity. What do we call that in Unity? Affirmations, denials. See, you are in imagination. Spiritual power of imagination is one of the 12 powers that we teach in Unity. So all of these things now that science is showing us, Unity has been teaching us for 100+ years. We know this truth to be ours. The challenge is for us to live it. So my charge for you today is that you leave here being a spiritual being, having a spiritual experience. You just happen to be doing it in a human uniform, wearing your earth suit as you go about your days. Shed the earth suit. Be your spiritual essence by catching the thought, having the yoga instructor give you a finger wag. You know, that's a great visual, right? Just do a finger wag to yourself. It's fabulous. Generating emotion around the experience that you want to have, putting those together and dropping it in the field of infinite potential. This is what you were called to do. So my charge for you at the beginning of this talk was for you to find an area of your life that needs to elevate and change. I hope that you've gotten that. And if you haven't, you have to come spend another couple hours with me this afternoon anyway. So my commitment to this is so deep, and I'm so passionate about it. It's all I teach wherever I go, no matter I'm doing leadership work or professional development training or coaching or training my coaches. This is all I ever teach. Why? Because any time any one of us elevates in consciousness, all of humanity changes. There is only one of us. We are the one that we've been waiting for. We just have to start living like it. Let's take these thoughts into some time of meditation. If you're comfortable doing so, I invite you to just close your eyes and remove anything from your lap that might be encumbering you. Let's begin this meditation as we began life itself, and that is with a breath. Let's take a deep centering breath together and release. And again, a deep centering breath and release. Imagine that you're breathing actually in and out through your heart chakra, expanding the love energy, generating the love energy that is in your heart chakra area. Breathing in through the heart. And again. Take a moment now, just using the spiritual power of imagination, to generate the energetic vibratory pattern of love around your heart chakra. And it generally feels kind of tingly and like an excitement coursing through your body. You should feel it in your limbs, down your torso, down your legs, but just focus on generate the energy of love through your heart chakra. Call to mind people that you love. Call to mind places that you're in service that you love, things that you love, the ocean, the forest, the animals, those people near and dear to you, whether they're here or departed. The love is still with us. Feeling this vibratory pattern of love now, expand it over this entire room, to your neighbor, to the people in front and in back, to to the people on live stream, to the people playing music. Expand this love energy now over all of Amesbury. Feel this vibratory pattern of love going out to the ocean, encompassing all of New England, all of the United States, all of the people this morning who are suffering. Let's breathe love out to them. I'm sorry you're suffering. Please forgive us that you're suffering. We love you. You are not alone in your suffering. Bring love energy now to anyone in this country who's engaged in some political discourse in a way that's not serving their highest good. Those who are leading countries and companies, people, teams, school children, all of those that are in spiritual leadership and secular leadership, let's rise them up with love. Bring love into your heart center and breathe it out to the leaders all around us. This world needs people awakening to the truth that we are centers of love, coming back to this oneness consciousness that we are all one. And now, sending love to the whole world. People in every country, every race, every creed, every religion, embracing the whole planet, Mother Earth, in love. Feel the energy in the room. Feel the energy around your body right now. The vibration of love coursing through you. Thinking loving thoughts. And now lastly, center that love right back in your heart. Love yourself. Thank you. Thank yourself for being the loving, caring, generous, creative, committed, awakened person that you are. Say, thank you, me. Thank you. I love you. Allow yourself to rest for a moment of silence in this beautiful, delicious sea of love energy and love vibration as we take these thoughts into the silence.